After the yellow flowers are done, we're ready to start the next part, which is to use two paints in the painting. And I always like to reinforce the Brusho with two paints also. And you know, people ask me a lot about light fastness, and Brusho's official stance is ink and dye based paints by their nature are not light fast, but there are ink and dye based Chinese paintings that are thousands of years old. The people that I know in Europe that have used Brusho for many, many years say their paintings are as vibrant today as the day they painted them. But just to be on the safe side, I like to use a little two paint with my paintings also. I figured the two worked very well together, and it will protect your investment of the time and love that you put into doing your painting. So I wanted to start giving the flowers some values now. We have this lovely effect. And we're going to use that almost as an underpainting. I'm not going to do a whole lot to the petals, but I want to give them a little bit of depth. So let me talk a little bit about my palette real quick. This is a handmade brass palette. It's called a little brass box. They've made these palettes for hundreds of years like this. It's a beautiful treat that I gave myself. Actually waited many years to get this. There's a waiting list to get them. And so I put a little bit of money aside until it was ready to come, and I waited, and it's just a treasure. You might notice that I like to use a limited amount of colors. I don't have a big palette with, you know, a whole huge rainbow. For me to have a little bit in my hand that I can mix, and I like to mix my own colors, it gives me more control. So the colors in my palette, the 16 colors in my palette are alizarin crimson, there's some rose madder genuine, this is quinacridone gold and yellow ochre. I've got burnt sienna, cad red, cobalt turquoise, and some burnt umber. This is violet, cobalt blue, cerulean blue, and phthalo blue. I've also got French ultramarine, Naples yellow, cerulean yellow, and translucent orange. Most of these colors stay. Every now and then I may take one or two out, but for the most part I pretty much stick with these, and I find just getting to know a limited amount of colors and how they play with each other and interact, and what kind of transparency and opacity they have on the paper, it helps me so much in getting the kind of effect that I want. Alright, so it's time to add some interest and some values to these flowers. And I've got such a beautiful effect with the Brusho, and lots of nice white paper coming through. It's very airy. So I don't want to do a whole lot to this. I'm going to take a little burnt sienna. And we're just going to add a little bit of interest to this. Maybe a little ultramarine if I want it darker in some spots. I want to keep this pretty loose. The Brusho's done most of the work for us already. Putting in pretty thick paint there, maybe about coffee consistency, and then come back with a nice soft brush, lose that edge. Especially around the outsides here where the leaves are turning. Let's push this one back. The thing to keep in mind is this is one of the most beautiful creations in the world. Flowers, all the beautiful things that grow on our earth. And to paint them, you have to have real respect for the beauty that is provided all around us. And the more you stay out of its way, again, the paint, and let it do what it does, the better the result. And this is about the darkest spot on this whole painting, is this one. Almost like an eye right here. So I'm going to give this lots of color. I do want to mention I am using American Jene paints. I have found that they are absolutely wonderful, and I highly recommend them. Now you have to keep in mind too as you do this that when your painting dries, it's going to lighten up quite a bit. Let's push this one back a little. So go ahead and go a little bit darker than you think you should, because when it dries, it's going to be just right. Maybe along this edge. I want these leaves to have a little bit of movement. Every now and then, it's kind of just fun to drop in a little chili pepper. Just for some varied color, a little splash of turquoise here and there, maybe a little rose madder. Something just to add a little interest. We did one there, we'll have to put one up here somewhere. There we go. Maybe just one more little dark area along this leaf here. Wet the brush, damp it off a little bit. Start out with a clear water away from where you want to lose your edge, work right into it, and you get a beautiful blend. Just like that. Again, I don't want to paint too much. I already love what this is doing. Let's do a little bit of the purple now. Use a little cobalt and a little ultramarine, and we'll mix a little bit of the rose madder in with it. Get a nice violet color, just like that. Just try to give a little dimension to the edges of the leaves. Let's lose some of those edges. Good to keep a good amount of paint on your brush too. You don't want to be anemic. The whole point of doing this is to add some values, some depth to the leaves, and soften that out. Just a few over here. Maybe make that a little darker since it's underneath. I think I need to push that just a little bit more. So I'm going to charge it with a little extra dark color. Let's soften these edges back out again. Let the paint particles work and move and do their magic. Remember, a little goes a long ways. Just needs a little dash down there, and maybe just a little something over here. Now the Brusho crystals are reactivating a little bit when I paint into them with the wet water. If you want to control this reactivation, you can take a dry paper towel with a good amount of tooth and just slough the crystals off a little bit, but make sure that your painting is dry, 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 dry before you do that. You won't have any problems. Going inside that stem, I think that needs to be a little bit darker, so let's add some more value. Isn't this fun? So now we put some values into the flowers, give them a little definition. We're going to let this rest for a minute, and then we'll come back and we'll do the stems. So I want this to dry so it doesn't bleed, and we'll finish the painting.